those who don't know, the Free State Project is a movement of voluntary human action where we are trying to concentrate libertarians in the state of New Hampshire.
I think we've done more in the last decade than every other libertarian movement combined has accomplished in the last 5 decades.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, libertarians and anarchists, movers, natives, and those on your way, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Free State Live, where you get to hear about all the different ways you can live free and thrive in the state of New Hampshire. And thanks especially for tuning in all season, all the way up to tonight, our last show before our summer break and everyone's favorite party of the year, Porcfest. So before we jump into talking about Porcfest, let's just get everyone back on board. First and foremost, everyone's favorite Queen Quill herself, Carla Garrick. How are you, Carla?
Hi. Sorry, I have such a broad smile because everything you said just made me happy. I love the idea. It's our family reunion. We're a prickly bunch, but we get together and we have the best time. So I can't wait.
Yeah. And we have Manchester's favorite family man and keyboard warrior extraordinaire, Kevin from the internet. How are you, Kevin?
Good. Packing for Porcfest. We got a lot of stuff ready. Got the tent outside. I was just finishing putting my waifu AR together.
That's awesome.
You'd be shocked to find out there's a shortage of pink AR-15 parts. A lot of stuff.
I'm not shocked at all.
I had no idea that was a thing until a few weeks ago.
I don't
oh
think
my God, everyone is arming themselves.
Yeah. I don't think anybody anticipated there would ever be a demand for pink ARs until somebody made a pink AR, and then all the weird people are like, I want it.
I'm the weird one. It'll be done, not for Porcfest, but everyone will see after.
Well, also joining us tonight in the spirit of Porcfest, we have our Porcfest producer extraordinaire, the woman who's done everything behind the scenes to make it happen, to answer your questions, Constance Spencer. How are you, Constance?
Good. I have seen pink ARs before. I ran that gun store in Alaska, so
yeah, no,
I've seen a lot of weird things.
I've seen them.
It's one of those things that I believe if nobody made one to begin with, there would have never been a demand for.
Eventually there's enough girls out there. There's enough girls. And like I said, I discovered the anime.
There is the Hello Kitty ARs.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying. Show me the parts. I can't find them. So
it's a market.
It truly, I had no idea it's a real market. It's really interesting.
Well,
but it won't be ready for Porcfest. My whole goal was to have it ready for Porcfest, but supply and demand is real. Look it up.
Yeah, Porcfest, it's like a magical date. It seems like it's out there, and then suddenly you're like, oh my God, it's 1 week away. I need to plan. I was like, oh, there's a wedding the Saturday before. Now I've got to figure out logistics, whatever. So, Constance, what's your mood? How do you feel?
I am super excited. So I knew I was going to do this last July, and I've been kind of helping run registration. I've been running registration for years. I've been helping Carla and Dennis behind the scenes. So I've picked up a lot of knowledge, and I actually started years ago when Jessica and Roger were running Porcfest in registration. So over the years, I've worked with different producers, and I've picked up a lot of different, tips, tricks, timelines. And so I started immediately after last Porcfest with the operations side. So I'm excited. I definitely had some moments in the last couple of weeks where signs that I ordered just got stuck in Proofland for days and days and days and days and days. But they claim that they are going to be at the campground on the 16th. So I'm excited. We're going to have new signs. Hopefully it'll be a lot easier for people to navigate who are new, because that is the point, right? We were all new at one point. We all walked into Porcfest, not sure what we were going to experience. It comes with a reputation, and the people that have moved and are throwing this event, we've got that one shot to really make an impression. And I hope that this year, the 20th, is an amazing impression for everyone.
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm just going to say this because it's in my mind. I was watching Top Chef, some foodie show, and it was the best season ever because they were worldwide winners. And so they were competing from all over the world and they were like the top, right? And at the end of the show, and I won't do spoilers, Padma does this little toast and she goes, "We've done 20 seasons." And it was such a moment and it so resonated with me because it was such a big deal to them. And I was like, we did that too, all of us, like 20 years, and it genuinely still feels like we're starting, which is exciting. And it's, it just, I mean, it really does make me so happy to know that there are these amazing people like you, Constance, out there who've actually, the way we all integrate is we volunteer.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I think when I moved, my kids were very small. Now 2 of them are adults, and I immediately started planning events for Pork Family Connection and inviting other families to join. And that's what I was doing in Alaska. So it wasn't a big stretch for me to do that here because I'd already relocated to Alaska, not knowing anybody, and made a life up there. So when I came down here, it was like, oh, this is going to be easier. There's already a community. I already know like why we're here, that they share my values. And it was so much easier. And so it was just awesome. So
it's less than a 7-hour drive from one city to another.
No, I was on the Kenai Peninsula. It was only like a 2-hour drive, 3 hours to the in-laws, but yeah, it was tiny.
I remember when I met you, I was like, how badass is this lady that she moved from Alaska? Like, which I think, a lot of like prepper types are like, that's the last frontier. Like, if shit really goes to a handbasket and we can invade Canada, then, we're doing that. And I was like, oh my God, she moved from Alaska to New Hampshire, for your principles. That's amazing. And it's been amazing watching the family grow and evolve and change too.
Yeah, we ran a class 3 gun store in Alaska, my ex-husband and I home birthed kids. I did all the was putting in my permaculture, raising my chickens, pigs. Like I was doing all those things. But after going to Porcfest in 2013, I realized that doing those things in Alaska, even though I had a great community, it was not the same as what is being built in New Hampshire. And so I wanted to be down here. My ex-husband agreed. Obviously, somewhere in there, he became the ex, but that's a different story. So we moved down, and after that first Porcfest, and it's just changed my life for the better. And I love Alaska. Like I'm a realtor. I'm a real estate broker with Independence Realty Group. And I meet with a lot of people that are kind of on the fence. Like, do I want to move? Where do I want to move? And I can honestly say to people that are like from New Jersey or, some of these super authoritarian states, like, yes, you want to move. I left Alaska to move here, and it was the right decision. And Alaska is awesome. So you definitely want to move. But it really was coming to that first Porcfest that was 100%. I remember exactly where we decided we were making the move. We were at the Ocean State job lot just up the road from Porcfest, and we're like, wow, we can buy all the things that we can't get in Alaska to refurnish our apartment for like a fraction of the price. Like, we can do this. And we did it.
There's so many stories like that where I hear people like they come to Porcfest and that's just their trigger. That's full stop, let's go. And like I even know somebody who was invited to Porcfest to speak because of his activism in another state, and like made the decision at Porcfest, called his wife and said, hey, go list the house, we're moving. And they were in New Hampshire 6 months later. And there's tons of people who come to Porcfest and never leave. Yeah, like they find a place to stay on their way out of Porcfest. They find their first apartment in New Hampshire and just stay. I remember Lily Tang Williams. I went to a fundraiser with her and her husband and a bunch of people out in Colorado a few years back. It was in Denver. And I remember our husband telling me a story. He's like, yeah, Lily went to Porcfest and then decided to stay an extra week and then called me and told me she bought a house and we're moving to New Hampshire.
I love her. I've shown her houses. She's got the best stories.
It's a good way to do it. You had mentioned evolve and change. So what is evolved and changed since the 2013 Porcfest you first went to versus the 10 years later, 2023 Porcfest? And we were talking before the show, like me and Carla and everybody are very, very different, like the way you do Porcfest, the way you attack Porcfest. So what's different this year? And then my follow-up would definitely be like, how do you recommend doing Porcfest if it's your first or second time, or, you know, you're coming in from Washington State, you know, do you stumble around drunk for 7 days like I do, or do you?
Do not recommend.
I personally don't do that one. So my first one was 2013. It was actually a very large Porcfest. It was Porcfest 10. So it had a lot of drawl to it, just like this one does. And
there were designer M&Ms, just for the record. M&Ms with little porcupines and an X on them. I remember I was so impressed. Shout out to the Vines, actually, who did do that.
Yes. They definitely made an amazing experience. And it's interesting with Dennis's hub idea that what I enjoyed the most of that first Porcfest is actually a number of families from all over the country had met there. I think I'm the only actual movers from that group, but we sat around the campfire, we discussed these libertarian ideas that we'd been discussing, peaceful parenting, unschooling, and we really made these deep connections. And I'm like, this is what I want my life to be. I want this to be around the campfire. I want it to be face to face. And so I also really enjoyed the talks. You know, I went to the parenting, I went to the school. I remember one of them was like women in the liberty movement. And, you know, it was so much information to take in. I just really wanted my kids to be there. And the only way I could get my kids there from Alaska with my sister who was having a baby a few months later was to literally go back, pack up my life and move and leave Alaska by, we were on a plane by the end of October and had sold all our stuff, rented our house. And I was in Ohio. My sister had her baby. And then we finished the move in May of 14 to New Hampshire. And then I went to Porcfest in 2014 with 4 little kids.
Everybody. Wow. That's a jump right there.
Wow.
Believe it or not, I'm actually usually a really thought out planning person, but sometimes you just do something, you shake it up, you just have to. And yeah.
I'm the exact opposite. I don't plan at all. I hate the idea of planning. In fact, this is already the most stressful week before a Porcfest I've ever had, because I keep having to remind myself I need to pack cameras and lights at some point because I have an actual job this year. Usually my experience with Porcfest is the morning I decide to go up, I'll throw whatever I think I'm going to need in a car and wing it.
All right. So can I be the old lady on the show and be like, everyone, here's the things you got to bring. You got to bring a hoodie. It actually gets really cold at night.
Rain gear.
You want to bring something for rain, something for shine, a hat, something you could put water in. Sunscreen, probably. I don't know. I think it gives you cancer, but that's, up to you.
So does the sun. You can't win.
I had vitamin D is very important. They've been giving us a snow job on that one.
You will see me running around wearing my sunblock hoodies. They're thin FPS 50 hoodies. I put the hood on. I hide from the sun because I'm very fair and I will look like a lobster. And I love those things. I'm a little warm in them, but you're also super hot when you sunburn. So
that's a good point.
I wear the long sleeves.
What else? Socks, actually. That sounds weird, but again, I would think about
comfortable footwear that can get wet and dry quickly.
Yeah, honestly, you walk a lot at Porcfest, folks.
Yeah, you do.
We're gonna have some people are gonna be driving around with golf carts and stuff, but it is a slog. I remember back when I organized it was before golf carts, and one time I walked that hill. I think I walked it 40 times on one day. We didn't have golf carts and we didn't have radios, and I didn't know how to scale things. I was like, I could do this, and it was
Oh yeah, my wife found out about. I warned her about the hill our first year, and she discovered the hill very quickly. Everybody does. So that's a good tip. Footwear is an important, understated fact for Porcfest. Yes.
My son's first Porcfest, his footwear got wet the first day, and he took them off and actually left them under somebody's trailer when we left, and he shipped them back
Oh,
to
cool.
us later. But yeah, he just, his feet were just terrible by the end of the week, but he went barefoot because, you know, he's a free range kid from Alaska, so that wasn't a problem.
Yeah, and actually there's always, so how is it going to be situated this year? So take people who have been a few times, just kind of walk them through, because I think we've moved stuff around. I don't even know.
We have moved stuff around. So anybody who's been going for many years knows that registration has moved from my first one. It was in that lower parking lot, and then it moved to the arcade. And then in 2020, when we weren't sure we could have Porcfest, we moved it down to the field. And that was great for volunteers. We could watch what was in the pavilion. It was really an awesome spot for 2020. However, in 21 and 22, when so many of the events moved out into the campground, it kind of like people would come down on Saturday and be like, "Oh, I just finally made it down to the field." They'd been there all week, and it wasn't until they had reason to go that they actually checked in. And since libertarians and cats, you know, they're similar with the herding. We decided
and sometimes you want to put them in a pillow and drown them in a river. Yes.
Well, you mentioned like they took all week to finally make it down to the field. I think that's a huge like thing not to gloss over, to tell people like you can go the whole week at Porcfest and never step foot in the pavilion. Whatsoever.
You definitely can. You definitely can.
Well before the hubs existed, you could do this. Well before Dennis started advertising hubs and putting them on a map. I used to joke that like my first Porcfest, I spent the whole Porcfest in the pavilion listening to talks. Every Porcfest since then for the last 9 years has been progressively less and less and less time I've spent in the pavilion and more time I've spent elsewhere enjoying the actual Porcfest, which is the parties and the people who are all over the campground.
Well, I'll get back to where registration is, but I don't think that people that haven't made the move here yet understand how awesome it is here, how we don't have to listen to every podcast to hear anybody who speaks our language. We can just like go to an event.
Yeah.
And we can actually get burned out. As an introvert, I can get burned out on talking about like all the liberty ideas. So I'm a social introvert, so I love being a community builder. But I don't want to go talk about like what the latest thing that the federal government has done to take away our rights and hurt people. Like I can't spend all my energy doing that. So I found a part of New Hampshire that I can do. But back in Alaska, I was alone. So I would listen to podcast after podcast after podcast so I felt less isolated. So I think that for people in New Hampshire, going to Porcfest is very different than people from outside of New Hampshire, because they're getting a breath of fresh air to finally be able to let their hair down and speak libertarianism. And people are like, yeah. And they're like, what?
Yeah.
You're not going to call me names?
Yeah.
We want people to be heading down to the field. There are a lot of important events that happen down there. We also have our sponsors. Independence Realty is down there. Brownstone is going to have a tent. All the big speakers that people are either happy or unhappy about, because, you know, life isn't just one menu, people.
Goldback is also down there.
Things.
Because we have three sponsor tents on the field this year. So Independence Realty Group, Brownstone Saloon, and the Goldback, which is actually a vending site. They're going to let people vend in there in exchange for taking Goldbacks. But since the map's up there, let's go back. Cool. We moved registration to where the people are. And where are the people? The people are in the campground. And a lot of the people are near this, what we are referring to as the peninsula. It's close to the park. It's close to the bathrooms, both the office bathrooms and the ones in the campground. It's where the cabins are. It is a very central location. So we have not only registration there, we're going to have pork info there. Those are going to be separate tents because there's power lines that go over. So we had to do smaller tents and separate tents. But that's good because it's given Shanna, who's running Pork Info, an opportunity to make it uniquely Pork Info and feature previous Porcfest. And registration will be specifically for going in and getting your bracelet, your magnet, your lay of the land. They will send you to Pork Info. and actually really close to where Queen Quill will be. So
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
and then on that map, a totally new location this year is FSP, where you will find Justin frequently. We're gonna
slave it away.
But the thing that I did most in the
Thank
pavilion the last couple years is attend a volunteer meeting in the morning, and now that's going to be moved to this location. So at 9 o'clock every morning, anybody who needs to come and get to go back to your question, Kevin, what you should do is you should volunteer. And I don't mean your whole week. I mean a couple hours, some point. Volunteer at registration. Like you will start seeing faces that look familiar. You'll and then when you're out wandering the campground, the person that sat next to you and checked people in, you know their name. You could strike a conversation. You don't feel so overwhelmed, because I know I'm not the only introvert who does this festival. Like we actually have an introvert hub this year because
I met a new mover this week who's an extrovert, and I thought it was weird.
yeah.
Yeah,
There's an
that's great.
introvert hub, and they are having a antisocial ice cream antisocial, and I was like,
love
"Oh my
that
god, that's
so
the best
much.
thing ever!"
As a
I'm gonna
mom,
go.
as a mom of kids who would like literally go and take the ice cream and want to leave and not do any of the things that like people were giving them ice cream for, I'm like, oh, this is so beautiful. This is exactly what my kids want. They just want the ice cream. They don't want to hang out.
Right. And so really for folks who are watching, we are asking for volunteers. It's a great way to meet people. It's a great way to start to get integrated. This is a movement of human action. So it's a test. We will be judging you.
I hope I passed.
Yeah, right.
With flying colors, 10 years of heavy lifting. Thank you. I mean, honestly.
No, but
my Porcfest have definitely changed. The early years, my kids were little. I did more family stuff, and now I'm doing co-producing. So,
the volunteer meeting is not the only important thing happening at the FSP hub.
No.
And I do want to just remind people of it. It's a new hub, it's a new thing, but I think it's something kind of more in line with what people expected the pavilion to be, more like forward-facing talks, but that are still important for people who are here, who are involved in the Free State Project, volunteers, stakeholders, and whatnot. Because I believe some of the events happening at the hub, at the FSP hub this year, are going to go a long way towards addressing some of the longtime concerns about maybe transparency or accessibility. We're going to be having an Ask Me Anything with a board member every day at the Free State Project Hub. We're going to be having events to highlight people who are actually doing activism in the state and the activism they're doing, to come and talk to and document it and promote it to others. And even going to be able to have a coffee with a coordinator, Constance, to just sit down and tell stories about being here in New Hampshire at that hub. And there's one of the hubs I think Porcfest has been lacking in recent years. There's a focus on what does this organization do other than advertise Porcfest.
Sure.
Yeah.
Or just move to New Hampshire. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good point.
Yeah, I'm excited for that hub as well. I think it's and doing those types of things in the pavilion, it doesn't work. Doing it in this tent is going to make a lot more sense.
Yes, but there's also hubs everywhere.
Yeah.
How many total hubs are there?
I think Dennis said over 100 in what he sent out today. 125 maybe, and he thinks there'll be like 15 that won't declare. As a matter of fact, I know that my kid will be on site 91, potentially vending, depending on how they're feeling that week. But we didn't put it on the map. So, but we also, Silk Road will be really well marked this year. So Silk Road gets you from the front to the back of the campground with a little less walking up the hill, back down the hill, up the hill, back down the hill. So this time, Dennis started the process early enough that he was able to get people that agreed to give him 4 feet of their campsite, so we can clearly mark it. And there are signs on the way to my house that will say Silk Road at the either side, so you will clearly know that you are in the right spot and not just cutting through somebody's campground.
Oh man, half the fun for me was cutting through people's campgrounds, and then
Which you think they are.
Yeah, see, I'm the opposite. I'm like, you're my new friend. Like, what's up? Let's hang out. You know,
Yeah, I was so shocked when I think it was actually Tammy, my co-host on Mensch Talk, who like she blasted me because I cut through the campsite and I was like, oh, it's a shortcut and it's a campground. And yeah, no, people take it very seriously. Do not cut through. Um,
Yes, Mrs. Kin is in charge of the FSP hub, and she is a fantastic organizer and
Yes.
networker and connector of people. So she is going to do a fabulous job. If you are looking for your particular brand of libertarian in New Hampshire, ask Mrs. Kin, and she will be able to tell you where they're at and when they meet.
for sure.
Now, Constance, are there any rules people need to be aware about the different areas of the campground, quiet times, curfews, like noise complaint ordinance time periods, or anything like that?
Well, I'm going to touch on the Rangers here with that, but not as the first part of that, because the first part of that is we are building a voluntary society, and a part of a voluntary society is you talk to your neighbors when you have an issue with the intent that you're going to be able to work it out. You don't come in like you're a jerk. I can't believe you'd play music at Porcfest at 10:01, or it's actually 11:01. But what like so as you can
or
see from the
even
map,
worse, let me call someone because I don't want to deal with it and I'm going to make it the Rangers' problem.
yeah, we'll get back to the Rangers. But as you can see from the map, there are no adult areas, there are no family areas, there are no general areas on this map. And the reason why is Porcfest has been selling out, and we don't want to discourage somebody from coming who only RV site available was somewhere in the back in the red zone. It's been very clear to Body Freedom Village, which you can see on the map, that they need to have walls up for their nudity. So the office at Rogers actually does a really good job of trying to steer people into like camping in the family area, the adult area, the noisier area, but it's just impossible to do at this point. The campground has been sold out for months. So we took those off the map, and with Rangers, our lead ranger, Sean, has been working on, we'd kind of hoped to have more things on the schedule to teach people how to live in a voluntary society and be responsible for their own personal security and how to help other people live in a safer society. Unfortunately, that didn't completely gel this year because life, and we're all volunteers. So, but we are going to have, like I said, a 603 number published on signs and the bracelets. So if anybody does have an issue, if the person that you talk to does tell you immediately, I don't care what you say, I'm going to beat you up if you come back, then you would need to message the Rangers and ask them, because yeah, we have rules. You don't hurt people. You don't take their stuff. You don't smoke in the pavilion. And that was actually kind of funny to me because I told Dennis we had that rule, and he's like, "We do?"
We do.
Yeah, we have that don't smoke in the pavilion rule because it's a closed space, and not everybody wants.
That was because
right.
I smoked weed on stage way back, like way back, 2009, and I actually got called in by the board. And they were like, you shouldn't, please, And in particular, Varen, who's, runs the ecclesiastic tent and whatever. And how I persuaded him of my position is I said, Varen, if you were on stage and you could talk about Jesus, and I told you at a board meeting you can't talk about Jesus, how were you going to feel about that? And they left me, but because they had also clearly communicated that this was perhaps not acceptable behavior, I did learn to dial it back. I was like, there's a time and a place, and sometimes you compromise because it's better for the optics, or it's better for
the community. It's easy enough to be respectful and step outside. It's not like it's a far way to go at the pavilion.
It's like 5 feet. Yeah, it's like especially if the walls are down, you step 5 feet out, you can still hear everything, and you can still see everything.
But you're also right. My natural inclination, Carla, would be like, "Oh man, you're giving me the chance that I'm going to be on the stage. Yeah, right. I'm going to do what I want."
Right.
Yeah.
And you know,
I probably
was
wouldn't
gonna say-
interrupt somebody's talk to ask them to put out something on the
Right.
stage, but it
Well,
does
I've
make
always actually been under the impression that the no smoking in the pavilion was actually a campground rule, one of Roger's rules.
I think it is
It might
that
be.
we had to adhere to, and they have a few other ones. I know they have a new one about no one's not allowed to vend firewood anymore, which again might have been in response to me.
Yeah, dude, you brought a dump
where
truck
I would
in,
show
bro.
up with, I would show up with 4 cords of wood and sell them for $1 a bundle. So I understand that, but like even in a voluntary society, people need to respect the private property owner's rules, and this is still private property at Rogers Campground, and they're their rules that we have to abide by. Are there any common misconceptions or rules that people aren't aware of that maybe it'd be helpful to make people aware of to make the week go a little easier, Constance?
Well, the campground rule about parking is really important. So you do need to stop at the office and pay for your day parking pass. And you have the map up there, but not the one that Tim's put out. That is actually really excellent for the parking. But the section that says parking on this map, because this is the campground map, is only 15-minute parking to go into the office, get your sticker, and go through. That isn't even registration for the festival. That is only parking for registering in the campground office. So that's important to know. Please pay for the people that are attending. You know, this is a huge stress on Rogers Campground infrastructure, and we all complain about how they don't take the money and put it back into the campground, but we do get to use this place over and over, and we're basically allowed to do pretty much whatever we want. We don't want to do anything that will openly bring in bad attention.
Right.
So the one thing is, if you're setting up a bar of some kind, the drink should be donation, not selling. Like, that's important. And trying to think of other things. I mean, that's really that we're given a pretty
So a lot of
blanket
common
Yes.
Yeah. One that I mentioned, and I'm holding in my hand for all the gun bros and all the guys making anime waifu guns like I am. Chamber flags are a popular thing. I recommend. I'm not sure what the rules on that are, but chamber flags are super useful if you're going to be open carrying. It's just, again, one of those kind of like courteous crowd things.
Yeah.
I recommend it. I always use chamber flag when I walk around.
And you know, and honestly, I mean, we do expect people to be responsible gun owners. Anyone who is actually carrying, like, you cannot be tripping bowls.
No, man.
You cannot be drunk. Like, we
Correct.
do, like, it's not a joke. Like, we
No.
take firearm safety seriously because we're not fucking idiots. So just everyone's on notice.
As much as I'm the meme goofball idiot of the crowd, there are periods of the day where you'll see me open carrying, and then you'll see me later where I'm not, and you will clearly know the difference. So very obvious.
We thank you for it.
But and it's so easy to just do those things. So chamber flags, super cheap. You can get them anywhere.
And there is the I think it's on porcfest.com, the gun safety
gun etiquette. Yep, there's a gun etiquette page. That's what I said. I can't think of it. I wish I had it earlier. We're packing for Porcfest. So everything's just in a pile in the corner of the room. But yeah, definitely look that up. Jump on the Discord. We have it. Well, I can send it to you if you're one of those guys. But yeah, look that up, or it's just another thing. I love seeing that type of thing. If you're going to go do it, and we're going to have this voluntary society, we're all agreeing to go to this place and do this thing, then you should be responsible and courteous with the people around you. It's very easy.
It's also, I can say that my son, who's now 19, if you're carrying a rifle, he's carrying a rifle. It's a great icebreaker for the less social.
That's why I do it.
Like, I watch him strike up conversations in a way that I've never been able to see him do before, and because he's kind of like me, he's an introvert, but he's social as well. So he likes meeting people, and he's looking forward to it. And this is the kid that, like, you know, complained for the first 5 years that I made him leave Alaska, and I drug him down here, and he hated it. And now he went back to Alaska recently, and he's like, "No, this was the right choice. Thanks, thanks, Mom." Well, maybe there was no thanks. I'll wait until he turns 20 for that one. But about
He
kids,
meant the thank you was implied.
about kids, the other part of that is there our coordinator for Porcupines, which is not the kind you drink, that's the little ones. She put together a fabulous document to kind of guide parents through how to free range their kids, because a lot of kids show up who have never been in a situation where they're given this much freedom, and they kind of lose their heads for a bit. The nice thing is, though, other kids have been doing it for 10 plus years. They grew up with this. They know what it's about. This is their daily life. And so they can kind of guide those kids on how to behave. So it's actually quite beautiful to watch. But the flip side of that is the free range parents also not necessarily had a chance to have their kids run all over. And then they are handed a drink and maybe a joint, and the next thing they know, they forgot they had kids.
They're
And
free range.
that's the problem.
It's the free range parents
Yeah,
that are the issue.
Always.
That becomes a problem. So
We'll find Kevin in the woods or behind the pavilion at some point.
No, I don't even get that crazy.
humans versus zombies, Kevin's hiding out. So yes, please remember that you have children. Please read that form, reach out to other parents if this is a new experience for you, because we love to share our success stories of how you can raise kids with autonomy and freedom and have them become an EMT at 19. Not bragging or anything, but so yes, please read that form and enjoy. Porcupines is going to be so awesome. Like the schedule, she's having parent talks in the bingo hall this year, so parents don't miss out on everything. And then the playground will be a place more for kids, because kids naturally gravitate there. My real estate team is actually donating a pop-up shelter for that space, so that the
nice.
parents can be out of the sun, watch the kids. But my first Porcfest, I had no kids here because I flew down from Alaska without the kids. And then my second Porcfest, I was here as a single mom with 4 kids. I was still technically with my ex, but he was off working, and I took all 4 kids. And so I spent a lot of time in Porcupines. So it's I've done the whole range from I had no responsibility to I have 4 little people to now my little people are pretty big, and I have time to do this.
Are the bracelets getting phone numbers? Do I remember there's some hack we came up with it? You can tell folks about.
Yes. So I managed to get a 603 internet number, which is not easy to do. But I did that. And so then I transferred it to email address that the Rangers will be able to sign into, and Free Aid will be able to sign into, because it doesn't actually belong to anybody. And you will be able to text a picture, like kid falls down, like my kid did on their scooter, breaks their teeth, breaks their wrist. Just snap a picture, text it to Free Aid, like, we need you here. So that is, but they are also inside the silicone bracelets. The number is there. It's just embossed. You will have to hold it at an angle. It's not gonna it doesn't have the and mine's in the other room, so you'll have to wait.
And maybe we'll say that that's a behavioral modification thing. So we want everyone to turn it over and to fill it in with the Sharpie, so that you have at least one time that the number went in your brain in case you need it.
Registration will definitely be encouraging people to program it into their phone, and we'll have a lot of signs throughout the campground with the number on it. So it'll be not just.
And then we're going to keep our fingers crossed that the Wi-Fi works.
Yeah. Well,
for the low-tech people, definitely for the low-tech people, something to remember, because I have done a Porcfest myself where I thought it'd be a fun idea. The moment I pulled into Rogers Campground, I turned my phone off, threw it in the trunk of my car, and I turned it back on when I got back to Manchester, New Hampshire, a week and a half later. And just went with no phone for the whole week, just completely analog. Didn't know what was happening until I talked to somebody or found a schedule that a child came up to me and sold me for $3 at 5 in the morning for the day's schedule or something like that. Where are all the important things? So we know where registration is. We know where the FSP hub is. We know where the pavilion is. But free aid, first aid, and Pork Rangers are something that actually tends to move every year. I will say they've been in a different spot every year the past few years, and that's one of the more important ones, I think, for people to know.
This is also, they were at Site 1 and 2 for many years in the campground. And when we basically only had the field in 2020, we moved them to the field. And it's been a different location in the field a couple times trying to figure out, partly because we ordered the wrong size tent. So we kind of just had them pop up where we could. And then we tried to move them back beside the pavilion. And that's where they were last year. And that worked okay. But because we really wanted them to have an event space this year, we wanted to make it a hub where they could have first aid classes, where they could have personal defense classes. We moved them to the back corner of the field, and that will actually give them access straight up into the campground. So they get that little road that is usually blocked off. They're going to have the key, and they'll be able to go straight up into the campground if there's an issue. And then also another thing that we heard a lot of, and we witness ourselves, is that people come in after 8 o'clock when the campground office is closed, and they kind of do their own thing. So with having registration and pork info in that peninsula area, 1 or 2 of the rangers can kind of hang out there in the evening, use that tent, keep an eye on the gate, keep an eye on the playground, and be really accessible. So I hope that they will use that space like that. I know I don't 100% know if they have enough volunteers yet. So please volunteer for Rangers. It's not at all about walking around with a nightstick and beating people. It is.
I mean, it can be as long as it's voluntary.
It's not been uncommon. Well, it's not been uncommon in the past for just news of Porcfest. Like everyone up in Lancaster and
there's nothing going on
knows about Porcfest at this point after 20 years, and I've been sent like Facebook posts and Reddit posts from people in that area saying, hey, remember this Saturday night, Porcfest's big bonfire, and locals will come and try and sneak in just because they know it's a good party.
Right. So please wear your bracelet. I mean, I know we're libertarians and we don't want to be told what to do, but wearing your bracelet helps. If you forget who you are because of something you took, we at least know you're supposed to be there and not out on the other side of the fence. So
because if you don't have your bracelet, we drag you across the street and we leave you in the field.
Yep, in that big field.
This is not a drill.
So
I'm kidding.
This is why Carla's going to be in charge of Rangers next year.
Oh goodness, can you imagine? No, see, we realized. So part of the problem is this is why I have a bedtime even during Porcfest, because last year, I think there was like one night where I was like, I'm just going to stay up late. And then I got busted 3 times. And the 3rd time I was like, oh, I'm the problem. I see.
So
nope. I'm excited for it. It'll be exciting. It's grown so much in the last few years. And again, this one is, again, all good, all press is good press, or whatever the thing is. Like, it continues to grow. I'm excited to see what it is. Like, if nothing else.
We have actually sold less tickets this year than we did last year. So although the campground sold out early, the ticket sales were down. However, I think that part of that is that the people that have tickets this year are actually going to all come. Where last year, a lot of people bought on speculation that Porcfest is going to sell out like it did in 21. We got to get our tickets.
Sure.
And then they didn't sell and they didn't check in. But again, maybe with registration being moved, we'll get a more accurate number. I will definitely say that it's really, really hard to get accurate numbers of Porcfest
attendees.
Yeah.
What the campground says that we have versus what registration says we have never match. Like I think there were probably like 2,400 people on site last year, maybe more, and registration check-in under 2. So there's a discrepancy.
Yep, I definitely saw a lot of people walking around where I was like, "Oh, you definitely belong here."
Yeah.
But do you belong here? Yeah. How'd you get in here? So, and it's good to see that fixed. It's not that, everyone should be forced to throw their money at something, but again, it's the once a year big shindig we have.
Yeah,
you know
I mean, The tickets are pretty ridiculously
Yeah.
cheap. So,
It's
for anyone who's even on the fence, I think they're still $75. So, like, if you were just a fan of Tulsi Gabbard or me
Yep.
or, Dennis or Jeremy or any of the myriad of free staters, the Underwoods, all these brilliant people who are speaking about what we're building here, but then also the mucky mucks who are coming, right? So, you for $75, if you live anywhere in Vermont or New Hampshire or Maine, you can come here RFK speak, or you can come here. Larry Elders is going to be there on Friday. That guy has been like talking about these issues forever. I mean, respectfully. And it's amazing that he's going to be at Porcfest. So really, folks, there's no excuse if you're watching this, if you're listening and you don't have your ticket. There we go. Olga's coming for Constance. There we go.
I'm modeling her t-shirt. So
I love that
why.
t-shirt and I'm getting one.
It'll be for sale. Olga will have them for sale.
So
I plan on tie-dyeing mine.
Oh yeah. Oh, what a cool. Are we still doing that programming? That's something we've done every year for a long time now. The kids do tie-dyes and make cool stuff.
Kitty will be doing tie-dyeing. Kitty from Latitude Learning.
So do you have like a favorite thing you're looking forward to? Like, do you have like your moment that
I am super excited about my prepping talk, actually. So I've been, like I said, I've been helping, in the background. I will definitely be talking about Porcfest on the main stage with Dennis when we do our opening thing. And that's exciting. But I'm actually a speaker on the pavilion, which is not easy to accomplish this year. So as one of the main sponsors, my real estate team, Independence Realty Group, is one of the main sponsors. I asked Dennis, I'm like, does this come with a speaking spot? And he's like, well, not really, not unless you could wow me. And so I would like everyone to know that even as co-producer, I got no special treatment getting this spot.
Yeah, no, he's brutal. I have to like arm wrestle some of these young guns. I'm like, wait a second. Are we doing talks on vision? So I go first. So by Saturday, we sound smart.
So the talk that I convinced him is the big prep. Why prepping only makes sense in New Hampshire. And I hoped to have a very personal panelist, which is my partner, who finally, as a major prepper, finally loaded up the shipping container and moved his prepping stuff to New Hampshire. But he is going to be on an oil rig in the Gulf of Mexico, so he will not be one of the panelists. However, we're going to talk about things like homesteading, which I did in Alaska, metals, including iron, but also community building, which I love so much, because if you don't know your neighbors, which is kind of the point I made to Waz, my partner, like, you had all this stuff, but if you didn't have people to help you defend your homestead, like,
it's useless.
What was the good of it? So
what's the long term?
Yep. And then also my personal passion is helping people make money with real estate and doing what I've done, and so that's going to be part of it as well.
Inspired me to go do the exam.
I want people to know that part of being prepared is having a good life until the shit hits the fan, because it's going to happen. We just don't know when. So let's be more prepared. If the dollar had collapsed right after I left my ex-husband, right after I found out about my blood cancer, like, I would be in a world of hurt. So I've done everything that I can to make my life better over the last 8 years, and now I'm not wanting the world to collapse. Just so we're clear, I really don't want people to suffer, but I'm not in charge of Washington, which is good, because I would hate that. But I want nobody to be in charge, but since they are, and they're determined to like print money until the world collapses, let's all be prepared in New Hampshire and have each other's back. So that's my most exciting part that I'm looking forward to.
I love it. And I love that idea of the good life, right? We talk about it all the time. It's one of the tags on my website. And it's like, this notion of, building a life. I often say, like, come build a life you don't want to escape from.
Yeah.
That is the value proposition. That is, that's exciting, where you're like, oh, I'm actually charting what I want, right? Like, it's intentional and mindful and all of that stuff. So I feel like we're probably, I don't know how long we're running tonight, probably an hour, but other things we've forgotten to ask you. I'm pretty sure I forgot everything that I was supposed to ask. So
Yeah, does anybody have any like questions in the chat? I do want to say that their signs will start right as you come in. I've ordered those flag signs that will kind of tell the newbies like step 1, 2, and 3 what to do as they drive up the hill. We're gonna have like no parking signs by the park, so nobody will accidentally like pull over and make a safety issue for the kids. Like, we really took a lot of the feedback from the last couple years as things went from 2020, when we had 800-ish people, to well over 2,000. It created issues. They needed solved. We worked on it, and hopefully, if not solved, they're definitely better. Gate check is not coming back. You're not going to be stopped at the gate to show your bracelet. That one. Sorry. I don't know what you're talking about. It's a different Waz I was meaning. Yeah.
I will say 2020 was hands down my favorite Porcfest of all time, and
It was a good one.
I don't even joke when I say this. My favorite part of it was because Carla, as the person in charge that year, took the idea of being in charge as just not do anything. Let's just let spontaneous order happen and let the campground just erupt into a great festival, which it did.
Benign neglect is a totally credible form of organization.
I would just like to say that Carla was doing that, and I was making sure that Carla didn't drop any of the balls. So it wasn't
It's very true. There was a team of people. I did go very laissez-faire, but I did order the porta potties.
And those bandanas.
Because I was like, 2 for 1. It could be a mess.
I still got one around.
Yep.
I will say there is. Let me bring it up here. We covered a lot of tips and tricks for newbies earlier. And if anybody needs to see that again and review it again, it's right on the website, right on porcfest.com. First timer tips.
Yeah, the website does have some outdated things. That would be one of the goals for the future, is to update. As a matter of fact, one of the pages still links to the 2018 sponsors. So not the sponsor page, but a different page.
Sure.
So.
And we're going to update because I'm going to take all new pictures of everyone there this summer. So if you're there next week and you see me with a camera, don't run away, but just pretend I'm not existing, because those are the best.
Stare right at him. That's his favorite.
That's what I do. It's how I stay off the radar.
But yeah, no, you check out porcfest.com. There are right on the website first timer tips, and those are accurate and timely and timeless. They'll never change. We can expect at least one day of rain. I think the forecast is calling for a rainy Porcfest.
More than one I would prepare for.
So prepare for at least one day of rain, one night of really, really cold, and a bunch of days of really, really hot. So just be prepared. I do know there was a call for volunteers. Always a call for volunteers. We did have... Let me pull it up. Rick in the chat earlier asked Constance, what time does the truck arrive at Rogers? He's volunteering for an unload. So what time?
Excellent.
Yeah, what time do we need people to help pack the truck and unpack the truck on both sides of this? Because that's one of the easiest forms of volunteering. It doesn't even interrupt your time at the festival.
So yes, please. We're scheduled to pick up the U-Haul at 9:00 on Sunday morning, but considering how U-Haul operates, we decided to do the pickup at the storage unit at 11 a.m. They're a little slow there, especially on the weekend mornings. So we'll load up there. The truck has a couple stops to pick up other things. My house has become a storage area. Queen Quill's house has become a storage area.
Oh, this is the best news. I was like, she has not told me, and it didn't want to be all naggy. And I was like, shit, I'm going to have to order another truck.
No, I think that your stuff, Tyler said your stuff should fit. So we're gonna pick up the things, and then Tyler will drive up Sunday night. So the truck will be there Sunday night. Abbott's will arrive Monday morning about 9 a.m., 8 to 9 a.m., start setting up the tents. So we will be unloading things into the pavilion probably around 9 a.m., 8 to 9 a.m. The sooner we get it set up, the sooner I get like that Monday evening to relax before everything goes insane. I've mentioned being an introvert. I talk about being an introvert a lot because I want people to know you can be an introvert and still volunteer and do a lot of things to make Liberty better. Like outside the keyboard. Like I don't do a lot of keyboard warriors, but you can do it. I've actually set up this year. I'm camping with my closest friends who I met at in 2014 right as I moved, and so I've got a rental RV that I will be at a campsite so I can sit by the campfire after the day is done and recharge with my
that's
best
good.
friends. So you're welcome to stop. People are welcome to stop by and say hello, but if I just stare at you, it's not because I'm mean. I'm just out of words. So that's my recharge for the week. But I forget where I was going with that. But yeah, just please volunteer for that setup. And then on the flip side, if you can't make Porcfest but you live in New Hampshire, please come 4:00 on Monday to empty the U-Haul and put it back into the storage because
good. It's Monday.
It's Monday at 4. No, yeah.
Because I was worried because I got an email earlier today inviting me to the post Porcfest barbecue that Bruce and Carolyn Fenton are hosting.
I saw that.
On Sunday from 1 to 5. And I'm sitting there looking like, oh, I'm going to have to drive straight there from Rogers.
Yeah. And I'm not going to do that.
So it'd be really hard to be in Manchester to unload the truck Sunday night. So thankfully it's Monday.
No. It's Monday. And we kept the truck till Tuesday morning. The daily rate is not the problem, so we might as well keep it an extra day and let our volunteers.
No, and of course the storage unit also stopped being open on Sundays. Like that's not smart, when you need. Yeah, because last year we came back on a Sunday and we had a team and we couldn't unpack and we had to redo it on Monday.
So can we get in for the loadout on Sunday morning?
Oh shit, you better check that.
Because this is the first I'm hearing that you can't get in on Sunday.
Oh, well, we should double check that for sure.
All right. So my stress levels went from like here to like here. Okay. Yeah.
We'll do it live.
So sorry. Yeah. No, it's this is not a drill.
Yeah. No. Constance, if Tyler has a problem, have him shoot me a text and we'll see. I'll help.
Okay.
We'll make that happen. Discord assemble.
They are open on Saturday, Carla, as far as you know? Okay.
And it could be like that on Sunday. It's after 4. Like, I think maybe it was like we got in and we missed the cutoff. So don't entirely panic. We should just double check.
Bluebird Self-Storage is listed on Google. Is open Sunday, 12 to 4.
There we go. So we got there at like 4:20 or
I would still call and confirm, Constance, because Google's been wrong lately too.
So if you're listening, can you update the events to noon on Sunday for loading? And we'll start.
This is why we had this.
Perfect. If nothing else comes of it, we just resolved something.
Before we run out of time, or at least I jump off, is there something we would like to announce?
Yeah.
Would we like that to happen tonight?
Please. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So what is you guys have baited me for over an hour here with what this is.
So I am very excited. Late. First of all, I'm very, very grateful, of course, to Dennis, who's been doing an incredible amount of heavy lifting over the past 3 years. And yes, we are also glad you asked, Rick. And it's a thankless task. It's merciless. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of dedication. It's a lot of moving parts. It's a lot of people. It's hard. It's actually hard. And we've been fortunate to have amazing people who've done it over the years. And we are just as equally lucky to finally sucker Constance into the #1 slot. And she will be taking the full reins next year as our lead producer on Porcfest. So, of course, as The Sorenses are very generously saying thank you to all our volunteers. Thank you, Constance, of course, for all the time, dedication, and treasure you've put in for this year. And I can't wait to see what you do next year. And I will willingly help you with whatever you need.
All right, I'll think about the Rangers then. So.
Oh, God, and it's on record.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. It's been a fun show. I'm totally looking forward to next week and seeing you all there. Make sure to find us. It's not going to be that hard. I mean,
no.
At least the three of us. Constance will probably be busy, but the rest of us, we're pretty loud and it's hard to miss us. So
I don't know how many times Dennis has said, I'm in charge up until the 18th, and then Constance in charge that week. But yes, please let me know. Please give me any feedback on things that you think could definitely be improved. I like working with people and making a situation where people feel really heard and respected and that their ideas matter. And that's what I hope to do for next year. But let's get through this year first.
And make sure you head over to porcfest.com, get that information, check your newbies list. If you don't have your tickets yet, like Carla said, you can still get them. There's still time. Good luck camping. But if you want to come up for a day, if you just want to see a particular speaker, you can make that happen.
Speaking of our volunteers and the Sorens, Olga called a number of places, and there are places to stay in the area. So thanks to her, and yes, you can come up. You might, and you don't even have to leave the campground at a certain time just because it's quiet hour after 11, which I didn't loop back to, and it's a little more flexible on Friday and Saturday night for sure. You can stay until 2 a.m. and then go crash at your place.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to it, and our best sign off for the year because we're headed into summer break. But the show is going to be back in September after we see you all next week. And until then, stay free.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Yeah, I don't believe in destiny, I just do what's best for me. Don't listen to my enemies, they're just full of jealousy. Yeah, this legacy, you gon' see what's left of me. You gon' see success in me, you ain't seen the rest of me. I just wanna be the best at what I know, better than the rest, just watch me grow. Put me to the test and watch me go. This is my quest, I'ma make it known. They call me obsessive, oh I know. Call me selective with my notes, call me aggressive with my flow. Call me offensive even though Joey ain't gonna lie.